the principal, and he either wants something to be done, a service to be provided, or a commodity to be supplied. And the other party is the agent who performs the action, either does something, provides a service, or supplies the commodity. Now, there are some problems with a contract. Either it is incomplete, or there are difficulties in monitoring the agent, or it is possible that even if the contract can be monitored, it is difficult to enforce the contract. So in such situations, the agent generally has the incentive to violate the contract. So the agent has two choices. He can either follow the contract, or he can violate the contract, in which case his utility is maximized at the expense of the principal's objective function, principal's profits, utility, whatever. Now, one of the most important areas in which moral hazard is observed is the labor market. You ask a worker to do something, and because he cannot be costlessly observed, he has the incentive to shirk, not do the work properly. So how can we ensure that there's no shirking? Holmstrom has argued that one such method, which can work if there's group production, so the work has been given not to a single individual, but to a group. In this case, the group can be penalized if the work has not been done satisfactorily. How will this solve the problem of moral hazard? It will be solved because the other group members can observe or find out whether one person is not doing the work properly. So you have a situation when all the members, most of the members are working properly, but some members are not. The penalty, however, applies to all members. So in this case, the group will come together and tell the offending person, that look, you have to work properly. This is called peer monitoring. Over here, peer monitoring. The other possibility is wage bonding. So the agent has to give a deposit, and if he performs the actions properly, the deposit is returned. Otherwise, the deposit is forfeited. However, the problem with this is that in many cases, the principal may now decide to violate the contract. So they can make false accusations that, look, the agent has not done the work properly, and appropriate the security deposit. So performance bonds are a possible means to eliminate moral hazard, but they are not very popular. In the rent market, yes, they are popular, but not in all markets. Now, a third way by which we can control or try to tackle moral hazard is using the efficiency wage hypothesis. Now, the origin of the efficiency wage hypothesis is that in a competitive market, we would expect that if there's unemployment, then the market wage rate would decline and the unemployment would get eliminated. So we have a situation, it's obvious, but let me just draw this. So we have a situation like this. This is your labor demand. This is your labor supply. So if there is unemployment, then wages will fall and it will become equal to the equilibrium wage rate. But in reality, we often observe that, the firms obviously benefit because they're getting the workers for a lower wage. But in reality, what we observe is unemployment persists in the labor market. Yeah, it is true that You can have frictional unemployment. So the total number of jobs and number of people looking for jobs is equal, but people do not know where the job is located. That is frictional unemployment. But the actual unemployment is often much higher than what we can explain using the frictional unemployment theory. So the question is, why does unemployment persist in labor markets? Why do firms pay a wage rate which is higher than the market uh, equilibrium? Okay. So in the 1960s or 70s, uh, Bliss and Stern wrote a paper in which they put forward the efficiency wage theory. This theory argues that uh, the productivity of workers is determined by the worker's ability, his education, skill, experience, how much the firm invests, that is the capital stock, but it also depends upon the wage rate. Why? I mean, this looks a bit surprising. Well, there are two reasons. In developing countries, if the wage rate is low, then this will lead to nutritional deficiency. The worker will not be able to have enough food. He's going to become less productive, and therefore output is going to come down.
Sir,
Yes.
yes, sorry to interrupt, but Ivan and Prantika are trying to enter.
Okay. Actually, I can't see the screen. Sure. Sorry, just one second. Okay. In case of developed countries, however, uh, low wages can lead to moral hazard and shirking. Bliss and some economists argued that if wages are higher than the market wage rate, then this can reduce or eliminate the problem of moral hazard. Now, let us see how it occurs. See, if you remember what I discussed in the last class, our underlying assumption is that it's a perfectly competitive market. All workers are equally productive and they earn the same wage rate. Once they are hired, the workers can either work properly or they can slack or shirk. Now, if you had costless monitoring, then shirking workers who shirk would be detected and they could be penalized. The problem is that it is not easy to monitor workers. There's a pretty high cost of monitoring them. And as a result of this, shirking cannot always be detected. So, what happens is if shirking cannot be detected, then, well, people start, don't work, do the work properly. Okay. Now, will you please copy this diagram? By the way, this is from Pindyke and Rubinfield, not from Perloff. This is LE and this is WE and this is W star and this is L star. Okay, have you finished copying this? May I move to the next slide, please?
Yes, sir. So, just a second. So, that is WE, right?
Yeah, WE and W star.
Okay, sir.
Achha. Okay, so this is the diagram. This is on the y-axis, you have wages, and here you have labor. Okay. The demand curve for labor is downward sloping. But the supply curve at any point of time, the supply curve is vertical. The supply of labor is fixed. Okay. So this is wages. This is labor. This is the fixed supply of labor, and this is labor demand by firms. Okay. Now, what is the equilibrium wage rate? The equilibrium wage rate is given where the market, where the labor demand and labor supply intersects. Okay. So at W star, labor demand and labor supply are equal, and there is no unemployment. Now, suppose there are a large number of firms, and only one firm faces the problem of shirking. What this firm can do is, in that case, they can simply say that, look, instead of paying W, I'm going to pay a higher wage rate, which is given by this green line. Okay, so this is the WE. Now the problem over here is this is the labor demand and this is the labor supply. So we have unemployment over here. Okay. So this is what Bliss and Stern is trying to explain. Now we'll discuss two situations. Case one is there's shirking in only one firm. So the market or equilibrium wage rate is W star, and this firm offers a higher wage rate of W, which is given by W star. Right. Now, the worker has two options. Remember that he has a disutility, so he can either work hard or he can shirk. If he works hard, his disutility is 50, but he gets the wage of let us call this W1. On the other hand, if he shirks, then his disutility is much lower. The problem is that if he is detected, then he gets fired. And let us say the probability of detection is theta. So if he is detected, then his wage will become theta W star. Okay, because he has to join some other firms, and all the other firms are paying W star. So what is the expected wage if he works hard? If he works hard, it's a certainty that his net payment will be W1 minus 50. And what is his expected payoff if he slacks? If he's not detected, 1 minus theta, he continues to get W1, but his payment is, this utility is 10, and theta, in that case, it is, his wages falls. Okay. Now, it's easy to see that if EH is greater than ES, then the person is not going to shirk, but he's going to work hard. And you can set W1, given theta, you can find out what is, here he is going to earn. He's going to earn W star. Okay. So given W star, given theta, you can find out for what value of W1, EH is greater than ES, right? And if the firm sets a price equal to this this W1, then the incentive to shirk disappears. The worker is going to work properly. So is it clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So basically, at the market clearing wage rate, workers have the incentive to shirk. If the firm threatens that, okay, if I catch you, I'm going to fire you, it doesn't have any effect on the workers because they will simply go and get themselves hired in some other firm. Okay, so the incentive not to shirk, how can it be ensured? If the firm offers a higher wage. So workers who are fired for shirking will have to face a decrease in wages. They will get hired by another firm, but now they experience a decrease in wages. And if this difference in wages is pretty large, workers will be induced to be productive. There's no problem of shirking for the firm. And the wage at which there's no shirking is called the efficiency wage. So suppose the probability of being caught is del. How much will the worker lose? The expected fall in wages is theta W star minus WE. And how much does a worker gain by shirking? The disutility from working hard. So if D is less than del into this wage gap, he's going to work hard, equal, he's indifferent. And if disutility is greater, then the worker will continue to shirk. So W star has been set at a too low level. Actually, over here, when I had made the slides, I had actually made, there's a mistake. Instead of W star minus WE, it should be Uh, no, wait a minute. Yeah, it should be WE minus W star. Sorry. Okay, so just reverse this. Achha. Now we go to case 2 when all firms have the problem of shirking. Okay. So in this case, all firms offer the efficiency wage of, again, actually I've made a mistake when doing this. It should be WE over here. So this is not W star. Let me see if I can correct it. Yeah. So this is corrected. So all firms offer the efficiency wage of WE, which is higher than the market wage rate. Okay, so W star is the equilibrium market clearing wage rate, and they offer a higher wage rate, so there's unemployment. Does this remove the incentive for workers to shirk? Right. So remember what has happened is that if you're caught shirking, you're going to be fired. But unlike in the previous case where there's a wage decrease, your wage remains the same. It remains same at WE. So if one firm faces the problem of shirking, then that firm can charge a higher wage rate, and they can say that, look, if I catch you, then you have to join another firm where the wage rate is lower. So there's a wage cut. But in this case, all the firms are charging WE. So if I fire you, you're simply going to join another firm at the same wage rate. However, there's a difference. Remember that there's unemployment. So if I fire you and the risk that you face is that you may be unemployed or you may get employed by another firm. If you're lucky, you're going to be hired by another firm. In that case, you don't face any wage cut. But if you're unlucky, then your employer may ask that, look, why did you get fired? And they may say that, look, people who are getting fired are basically lazy people who don't work hard. So that is a signal of your productivity. And they can say that, look, I'm not going to hire you. So the model now becomes that all firms are paying W star. No, sorry. None of it is W star. So over here, I've written W star, but it should be WE. Okay. Since it's a picture, I can't correct it. I can't correct it in the picture. So all firms are paying WE. If you get thrown out, you can join another firm, but you still get WE. Okay. So if you shirk, your disutility is lower, D. But the risk is your wages will not fall, but the problem is you may not get employed. So now you have del, the probability of getting caught. This is WE minus the probability of being re-employed into W star. This W star is correct. The second W star is correct. And if the probability of getting re-employed is given by epsilon, the condition is del WE minus E into W star. Sorry. This is also WE. This is also WE. So W star minus probability of getting reemployed into WE. So this is W star minus E into WE. Okay, is it clear or will I write it down? Hello?
Sir, can you please write it down?
Yes, sir.
So the equilibrium wage rate is W star. But firms are offering WE, which is greater than W star, as a result of which there is unemployment. Okay, so the situation model is like this. So this is WE, this is W star, and you have got unemployment over here. Okay, so over here, unemployment is 0. Okay. Now, what happens is, if you are caught slacking, you get fired, right? The problem is, the risk factor is, will you be re-employed? So if you are re-employed, then there is no wage cut. All firms are paying W star, are paying WE. So you continue to get WE. But the risk is that you don't get a job. In that case, your wage becomes 0. So now the risk is theta. This is the probability that of deduction into what is your wage loss? WE. Sorry. Okay, so if you shirk, then this becomes your payoff. So this is if you, the risk is that you don't get the job. You may not be employed. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Okay, actually, yeah.
sir, can you explain this part WE minus EW with that part, get job.
Acha. Okay, just give me 1 second. I'll copy this. Okay. See, del is the probability of being detected. And E is the probability of getting a new job, right? Now, you can think of the situation like this, that he's shirking, right? So if he's shirking, he does not get caught, and this is he gets caught. So the probability is del. Now, if he gets caught, then he's immediately fired. And if he's fired, he either gets a new job, and here he remains unemployed. Okay. Now, what is the probability that he gets a new job?
E.
It is E. And this is 1 minus E. So if he's fired, then what is the expected payoff? He gets, everyone is paying WE. So he's going to get WE. And this is the probability that he is hired. And if he's not hired, 1 minus E, what is the wage that he gets if he's not hired? He remains
0.
unemployment.
0.
Yes. So it becomes epsilon WE. Okay. So that means if he gets caught, then the decrease in wage is given by this amount. Actually, it is given by this amount, which is equal to okay. Now, in addition to this, there's a probability that he gets caught, right? So we have to bring del before this. So this is simply right. And now the condition will become his disutility. If his disutility is from working properly is less than then shirking gets eliminated. Okay, so if he works hard, then his cost is DUH, is this utility. But if he slacks, then his expected cost is del 1 minus E into WE. So depending on the payoff, if this condition gets satisfied, then the worker loses the incentive to slack.
Understood, sir.
Now, an example which you have already familiar with is the efficiency wage in the Ford Motor Company. In 1913, when the automobile wages started to be manufactured, it depended heavily on skilled workers. Then we had the introduction of the assembly line, and this reduced the cost of production, mechanization. Technology became mechanized, and it became less skill intensive. Everyone simply had to work properly. Everyone had a role, they just had to do a small thing, but do it properly. But as the work became monotonous, the workers became irritated. I mean, the work was not very interesting. And so their productivity started declining. They did not work properly. As a result, the profit in the automobile companies started falling. Then in 1914, Ford Motor Company introduced a change in the wage policy. At that time, the equilibrium wage rate was around $2 to $3 per day. Ford Motor Car increased the pay to $5. So that means W star was between 2 and 3, but WE is 5. And when Ford was asked that why did you increase your wages, Ford replied that I wanted to improve labor efficiency and reduce profit and increase my profit. Well, what happened was that the workers knew that, okay, if I did not work properly, I would get thrown out and have to join another company which would pay me lower wages. So all the workers started working properly. So productivity increased, the workforce became more stable, workers became more loyal, and as a result of this, the labor relations improved, and it had an effect on productivity also. Productivity increased by 51%, and this also led to an increase in profit. Okay. So, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Next, I'll just start with the theory of firms, and then I'll continue in the next class. So, the theory of firm owes a lot to two economists, both of whom got the Nobel Prize. On the left-hand side, you have Ronald Coase, and on the right-hand side, you have Oliver Williamson. See, the neoclassical economists, the firm theory that you have learned treats firm as a black box. We take decisions, but actually we don't know how the major decisions are carried out. We just take a production function, we take a cost constraint, and the firm is assumed to maximize profits. Then in 1937, Coase wrote a seminal paper in, I think, Journal of Law and Economics or Economic Journal, I've forgotten which, called The Nature of the Firm. He argued that the neoclassical economy was basically assuming a type of situation in which a utopian economy in which you have a just-in-time model and division of labor. What does it mean? The entire process of production would be divided into small steps, and instead of firms, you would have household production. So every household would perform just one function in production. And they would not have stocks. So when an order came, they would perform the action and supply. They would buy the raw material, add the value, and sell it to the next person. So this type of model would work in a utopian economy. But in a real economy, the producer has to contract with both upstream and downstream agents. The upstream agents are the persons from whom he buys inputs, and the downstream are the persons to whom he supplies his product. Now, when you are entering into a contract with both upstream and downstream agents, then the contract has to be monitored and enforced. Okay. So you ask a person to supply you inputs, and what happens is he doesn't supply the inputs. So you have everything except for one commodity, one input, but you cannot fulfill your order. On the other hand, you have to supply certain items. Anyway, I'm not discussing the downstream things. So the fact that contracts have to be monitored and enforced introduces transaction costs. So the cost of monitoring, cost of enforcing the contract leads to transaction costs, which can make it very difficult or unprofitable to enter into a contract with the input suppliers. So Coase argued that in this situation, what the firm does is he's simply going to vertically integrate downstream sorry, এখানে আমার একটু ভুল হয়ে গেছে. He's going to vertically integrate upstream activities. Leading to and this will lead to the creation of a firm. So what happens is that I have to buy an input from you, and in the presence of transaction costs, I'm not sure whether you can supply the input in time. So what I do is, instead of entering into a contract with you, I simply absorb you into my firm, into my agency. So instead of you being an outside input supplier, you simply become a department in my firm. Do you understand this?
Yes, sir.
So Coase argued that it was the presence of transaction costs which was leading to integration of activities and the creation of firms. Then in 2009, Oliver Williamson got the Nobel Prize in 2009, and he introduced two very important concepts called asset specificity and holdup. So I'll discuss the holdup problem later on. Today, I will just introduce the problem of asset specificity. Asset specificity means that the investment is useful only in a particular transaction. Okay. So when you want to start production or when you want to start trade, you have to invest in physical or human capital. So you want to start production, you need, let's say you want to start producing, you want to set up a factory for producing cars. So you'll have to set up, you'll have to invest in the machinery to produce cars. Now, very often what happens is that, let's say, suppose you buy you rent a premises, you rent a room. Now, this room can be used for different purposes. So in the first month, you try to set up a Xerox machine, your business fails, so you can shift it to a courier company. This is not asset specificity. Asset specificity occurs when the investment can be used only for a particular purpose. You cannot change your function. So you have purchased a machine to manufacture cars. That machine cannot be used to manufacture something else. This is a problem of asset specificity. Now, asset specificity can occur uh, in four ways. One is physical asset, physical. So the equipment or machinery that you use can produce only a particular type of commodity or something which can be supplied only to a particular person. See, if you buy a Xerox machine, right, can you can supply to any person who requires a photocopy. But if you buy a automobile die, this is a machinery which produces the automobile body parts, the body of the car. Now, this automobile die is specific to every manufacturing, every model of car. So Maruti 800 will have a particular die, Wagoner has a particular die, Mercedes-Benz has another type of die. So when you're deciding to set up a automobile manufacturing company, you have to decide which die to purchase. If you want to manufacture Wagoner, you buy that type of automobile die. But the problem is, if you don't get orders, you can't say that, look, I'm going to use the die to produce Mercedes-Benz. You can use it only for producing Wagoner, not for any other type of company. So that means you become tied to Maruti Suzuki. You cannot supply to Tata or Hyundai or the other automobile manufacturing companies. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Achha. The other type is site specificity. So investments in productive assets are often made in close proximity to each other. Why? To reduce transport cost or sometimes even processing cost. See, there are some items which are uh, very difficult to move in a raw state. In that case, for instance, coal. It is easier to transport coal. It's difficult to transport coal when coal is being used as an input. So what we do is we locate all industries which uses coal close to the coal mining centers. Again, look at semi-finished steel. The blast furnace, steel making furnace have to be located side by side. See, once the steel is produced in the blast furnace, you have to transport it to the steel making furnace. So this is the blast furnace and the steel is transported to the steel making furnace. The problem is if the distance is large, then the steel is going to get cool, the temperature is going to come down. So that means you will again have to reheat the steel. But on the other hand, if it is like this, then there's no need for reheating. So you have thermal economies. So what it means is that certain productive assets have to be located side by side, very close to each other. You can't have one investment over here, another investment in a different place. Third is human asset specificity. Okay. So for instance, I'll give a very easy example that, look, I've been teaching for about 35 years. Can I switch over to teaching another subject? I don't mean switching over to math eco or development or something like that? Can I switch over to physics? Or can I switch over to chemistry?
No, sir.
Why?
বিকজ এক্সপার্টিসটা একটাই পার্টিকুলার ফিল্ডে হয়েছে, নেক্সট ফিল্ডে যাওয়ার জন্য আবার রিএডুকেশন অ্যান্ড রিট্রেনিং দরকার।
Okay. So in some sectors, not in all sectors, of course, but in some sectors, the worker has to be trained in a particular skill. And this skill is applicable only to a very narrow sector. Okay. So what I have is, this is my skill level, and I can use it to manufacture M1. This is my skill, I can use it to manufacture S2. So if I'm trained in S2, I can't switch over to this industry. I become fixed. I have to remain in this particular manufacturing sector or industry. So there are many examples of this. I'm sure that you can find it out. Last, you have what is known as dedicated assets. Dedicated assets are investment in general capital to meet the demands of a specific buyer. Okay. So this is not a situation like the automobile die, when you are linked to, say, Maruti Suzuki. You can here, the investment that you make can be used to supply to any company in this sector. The problem is like this. Let me give an example. It will make it clear. In the late 1980s, there was a company called Nutra Sweet Company. This was the largest producer of artificial sweetener, which was called aspartame. Its worldwide market share was close to 95%. Just one second. So what happened was that who purchased aspartame? Well, consumers used to buy aspartame, but it was mainly purchased by those who were making Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi. Okay, so that means NutraSweet company mainly supplied to two companies, which was Coca-Cola and Pepsi. What is the risk of NutraSweet? If Coca-Cola, for instance, suddenly decides that, look, I'm not going to buy from NutraSweet, I'm going to stop producing Diet Coke, then see, about 50% of the output produced by NutraSweet is going to Coke. So if Coke stops its demand, then 50%, NutraSweet will have about 50% excess capacity. So Coke gets a market power. Coke can threaten that, look, you either renegotiate, charge me a lower price, or what I will do is I'll stop buying from you. I'm not going to produce Diet Coke anymore. So NutraSweet is tied to Coke. If it can't sell to Coke, then all its investment will be left unutilized. Okay. So this is a situation which is referred to as dedicated assets. The assets are dedicated to meeting the demands of a specific buyer. Okay, so is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Now, the problem with asset specificity is that you have to see, before you, in the planning stage, you can think that, okay, I have these many options. But once you have invested, so once you make up your decision that, look, I'm going to specialize in teaching economics, or I'm going to buy, or suppose you buy an automobile die which produces Wagoner, or you invest in producing aspartame. As soon as you have made the investment, it is no longer possible for you to switch to another sector. So at the planning stage, you have many options. But once you make the investment, you become tied to a particular industry or service sector. You cannot switch to another place. In this situation, the supplier and the firm, the person with whom to whom you're supplying, both of you gets locked with each other. Okay. And in that situation, as you will see later on in the example that I'll cover, each party has the temptation to renegotiate. So like Pepsi can say that, look, if you don't lower the price of aspartame, I'm not going to buy from you. Aspartame will have to accept the lower price. On the other hand, aspartame can also say that, look, you raise my price, otherwise I will stop supplying you with aspartame. And Pepsi knows that, look, aspartame is the only person who can supply me with this product. So either I'll have to stop production of Diet Coke, or I'll have to pay the higher price. So this is called the problem of holdup. So in the next class, I'll discuss an example of holdup and discuss this and show how asset specificity leads to the formation of firms. So is there any problem? Is there any query?
Sir? Sir, how do you distinguish how do you distinguish between the physical asset specificity and dedicated asset specificity? Because physical also we are supplying to a particular manufacturer, and here also we are supplying to a particular customer like Coke or Pepsi in the dedicated one.
Achha. See, in physical asset, you can supply only to a particular person. Okay. So you have a monopsony-like situation. There's only one person to whom you can sell. Okay. But
Okay,
in case of a dedicated asset, there's a large number of buyers. But there is one very large buyer, one or two very large buyers. And they comprise about 40 to 50% of the market. Okay. So you have already invested in supplying. So let's say you have a situation where Diet Coke is asking you to supply 100 tons. And consumers are demanding only 0.05 tons. Okay, so this is Pepsi. So you have a large number of buyers, right? You have one over here and many households over here. But how much have you invested in production? You have invested in, this is your capacity. Now, if Pepsi says that, look, I'm not going to buy your product, then you're going to have excess capacity of 100. Theoretically, you can use it to supply these people, but they are not going to demand that much.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So it's close, but a very slight difference. Achha, I've not been able to show you the marks, but you can see Megho Chandrima has got 4.5, Spondon 9, Onnesha 8, Ritobash 5.5, Prantika 5.5, Dia Lepcha 4.5, Oantika 7, Nature 5, Tista 8, Jisan 5.5, Protiti 5, Orgo 8, Gunjan 8, Aradhana 8.5, Sharnoy 7.5, Ognija 8, Bhavika 1, Jannat 0, Arjo 8.5, Shomodeep 7, Sarthak 6, Ritika 4, Dia 3, Nakshatra 9.5, Shubhajit 0, Sneha 6.5, Ritimoy 7, Ivan 5.5, Sweta 4, Vidisha 7, Oishwalina 3.5. So these are your marks, and the roll call. Megha Chandrima, are you present? Acha. Spandan?
Present, sir.